Here we go!
Welcome to the P2 Power Play Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Wilson, alongside...
With Thiago Cucci.
Hey, Palé!
Vamos nessa, my friend.
As we said, Season 2, Episode 2!
It's amazing. Let's make it happen. So I'm wearing our glasses, Blue Machine glasses. You guys cannot see it, but you'll see in a minute.
Yeah.
So please buy it at your local supermarket, Publix, Walmart, or directly with Kyle Wilson.
Amazon.
Amazon, everywhere.
Found everywhere.
Yeah?
Found everywhere.
Why you don't introduce the two guests that
So
we have
as you
here?
guys know, we're in blackout for Season 2, and we have two guests. One's actually a family member of mine, and we have Chris Debari again.
Debari.
Greg Wilson!
Hello, it's great to be here, guys. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
There it is. Yeah.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you as always.
What a voice, huh?
What a voice. So normally what we do, guys, we just do a quick introduction. So, Greg, I'll start with you. Could you just kind of explain who you are, what you do, and why you do it?
Greg Wilson, I'm Kyle's uncle, and I do it because I love the kid. So, yeah, I mean, filmmaker. I work in television and video production, do a lot of sports. I just got back from a big trip this summer where I was producing and doing camera work for a lot of tennis tournaments around the country.
Oh,
Nice.
Yeah.
Now, didn't you win
I was going to ask the same question.
an Emmy Award?
I did win an Emmy Award, yes, for a piece while I was working for a news agency. Yeah.
And what was it?
It was for a piece called Dangerous Crossings, and it was a 3-part investigation into this, like, I forget the road, whether it's Turkey Lake or Sand Lake, but there was a place where parents were dropping their students off, like, on the other side of the road from the school, and it's a really busy road at rush hour.
Yeah.
So we got all this crazy footage. We had the helicopter up shooting, and the kids were, like, dodging traffic like the game Frogger to get to school. And it's like, parents are doing this? I'm like, go to the place, the circle where you
Take the extra 2 minutes?
Yeah.
the passenger side.
Yeah, it freaked people out. So, yeah.
And what does it feel like, or how did you feel when you actually won the Emmy?
It felt great. That was pretty much the first time I ever submitted for one. So actually, at the time, I thought, I guess this isn't that big of a deal. Kind of normal if I just got one like right off the bat. But then I got nominated like 9 other times and didn't win any. So I was like, I guess it is pretty important to win it. Yeah.
And where you got this? Where you got the Emmy? Was it here in U.S. or?
Oh yeah, here in the U.S. Yeah. So like, it was the news agency Orlando.
Oh, nice.
In Orlando, where I was working, yeah. So
How long ago was it?
2012 or 2013, I think. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
And then over the next 6 years, 9 other nominations, 8 or 9. Yeah.
Boom.
So
It's like a trophy.
yeah. And
Comes
heavy.
with the money as well.
It's legit. It's heavy. No, it doesn't come with money.
That's funny. Go ahead, Chris. Why don't you reintroduce yourself again for our audience?
Hey, everybody. I'm attorney Chris Debari from CDB Injury Law, the law offices of Christopher Debari. Appreciate you guys having me back again. Thank you. Real excited.
Well, thank you. And I also want to add that he's one of the best supporters, if not the best supporter for us, helping underprivileged kids to play soccer. Thank you so much for helping them.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. It's great that they can do it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And you were telling us earlier last time we had Snoop Dogg. Are we going to have any special guests today?
I don't know, but I ran into Christopher Walken earlier. We're just talking, and we saw a cat, and this was crazy.
If you guys are listening to the podcast, you might this is good because if they are not watching, you can like literally be like Snoop Dogg without anybody knowing. It's amazing. So I would like to start with that as well. I forgot on the very beginning.
Please.
If you want to watch in Spanish, cambia para ajustes y ¿cómo se chama? Autotradução. Meu espanhol é mais ou menos. Se você quiser assistir em português, você troca no settings e assiste em português. If you want to watch in English, done. It's automatic.
Boom.
Yes?
Yeah.
Boom. Vamos que vamos.
All right, Greg,
Season 2.
so since this is the first time you've been on, I want to start with you. And just the first thing I want to ask really is, you have any crazy stories maybe about when you were in production for movies or something you saw when you were hosting shows or whatever, maybe at a game? What's one of the craziest things you've ever seen or done or been a part of?
When I was, I'll keep this one brief, but when I was in CBS in New York,
Yeah.
I worked in what was called the record room. And that's where we get all the raw footage sent to us that that you'll never see, because it's all edited down into pieces. So no one sees this except us in the record room, and then they're wiped after the piece has been edited. So there were two politicians that, and I guess they don't realize that, they're mic'd up already. They're in a room, even though the camera's not rolling.
But you're still getting the audio.
We hear them, and we're rolling. Like, the camera's on, but it's not recording, you know what I mean? So we're seeing everything. And they said some, things that concerned me greatly. But
can you give an example?
No. I don't want to get into that or start anything. I don't even want to mention, like, which politicians, not on the air like this. I'll tell you a little bit later, but...
Was related with corruption, or?
Yeah. And corruption, but also indications that they are not good people. These two in particular that I heard. Yeah. So
that's crazy.
That's why I stopped watching House of Cards. It's fascinating, but then you realize these people are way more horrible in real life than even seeing it on the show.
It's
so
crazy.
Can you just imagine,
Yeah.
One of the funny stories as well was when we were about to open arena, and we called him to help us out with the TV. Remember that?
Yeah.
And my English was like probably 10%, and he got for us a live with Dave Martin with the Good Morning Orlando. I think it was Channel 6.
Two different.
Yeah, two different, but one was
out.
one was with Dave Martin. I remember.
Yeah.
That was today. It was crazy. And the guy was like, I think you were, your dad called me, like, tomorrow they're going to be live there. I'm like, I don't know English. It's hard. How are you going to say it? And they came here to Arena. They did a live with the Good Morning America, and it was terrible. But thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Today I can watch again and say, oh, my goodness, I improved a little. My hair is not perfect, but it was
pretty good.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's not easy.
And then I remember, Greg, probably when I was a kid, I remember you telling us a story, if you could verify this, maybe I'm crazy, but you told us a story that you were maybe was working for CBS in New York, and they brought you in for an interview or whatever, and then they sat you down in a room because you said you had like you submitted your resume and you said you could do certain things, and they dropped you and you said, you need to figure this out and do it, and you had to do it live or something. Is that right? Or am I remembering something different?
You're remembering, bits and pieces there. So it was MSNBC.
Okay, yeah.
My buddy Joe got me the job there, and he sold me as, Greg's great with Chiron. It's like Chiron graphics we had to make. I'd never used a Chiron. I didn't even know what one was. He's like, don't worry about it. I'll show you what you got to do at night, and then when your shift starts during the day, you'll be able to do it. And I figured it out. It's pretty simple. Yeah. So but
they tested you on the spot, right? If I remember correctly.
No, not to get the job. I was tested on the spot when I had to do something a little more complicated. And, it was breaking news. It had to be done quickly. And so since I knew I wasn't, fully there yet, thankfully, my coworker was next to me. I was like, oh, you do it. You're a little bit faster than me now. So I got out of that. And then afterwards, I studied exactly what they were talking about. So
That's
it didn't
funny.
happen again.
Yeah.
What is Chiron graphics exactly?
So it's mostly text, on the bottom that I was doing, but there are sometimes little graphical elements involved, like lower thirds at that time. Now they're using different programs and things. Chiron still does Chiron stuff, but most of the TV stations, I think, are using a variety of different stuff. They might have some Chiron things, and then other manufacturers and software developers.
And has it changed a lot over the last 20 years?
Yeah. Big difference. Easier now.
I understand now you're working on a natural series, Swimming with Sharks.
Yes.
Are you allowed to talk about that?
Yeah. It's a documentary with Jim Abernathy. He's a renowned conservationist. And so I've been on about 30 shark dives with him in the Bahamas. Scuba diving with tiger sharks, bull sharks, lemon sharks. And this is really fun. And what you learn is not just what Jim would tell you ahead of time, is that they're just like sentient beings. They're like dogs that come up and want to be petted. You're like, I'm not afraid. I'll go dive with sharks, but I seriously doubt it's like that. No, it's like that. They come up to you for a head rub, and just for a head rub. They're not coming up to take a bite out of you. Yeah. And it's been a great experience, and we're pretty much done shooting, so now it's down to editing the documentary or editing a sizzle reel and getting it sold, like hopefully as a ongoing series, so Jim and I can travel around the world and do nature documentaries.
Yeah. And how long would it take to actually edit, a typical timeline of a documentary? So if it's like 9 shows or something.
Oh, geez. Well, we would hire like a full edit team, so I'm not doing everything myself, because if I do everything myself, it'll take a bit. But I would say, a month or 2 probably for each episode. If it's going to be an hour, let's say each episode of the series is an hour, probably a month or 2. Yeah.
And then I got a question for you, Chris. I want to bring into the shark conversation. If somebody got bit while they're on the shark duty and they called you, how would this work?
If somebody were bitten by a shark?
Yeah. Like if Greg went on and he got bit by a shark along the way.
I got to say something. Like yesterday, I don't know if you guys know, the Royal Caribbean, the cruise, there was a kid that got bit by a shark yesterday. So let's see if this case, how can they cover it?
So they're like on their stop? They're parked, they're like going to the Bahamas, they park, and then they're on their excursion. Yeah. Well, that's an interesting question, because a lot of activities, we were just talking about this earlier, it had to do with a certain amusement park that I won't name that has dolphins. But they craft these waivers that are very, very detailed, and essentially they want to be relieved of all potential acts of negligence and things like that. So whether you'd have a cause of action against the cruise line is probably going to have to do with a lot of what's written in their paperwork, their contract, their waiver. There are certain types of activities that probably need only be as safe as they appear to be, and diving with the sharks, I mean, you're assuming a tremendous amount of risk there. If you can demonstrate that somebody who's with the cruise line or somebody who is working with the cruise line or, at their direction did something to put the person in danger, that's a whole different story, because then you're not dealing with just, regular negligence, which is just simply the failure to use reasonable care. You may be dealing with gross negligence, and gross acts of negligence can sometimes get you around the language of waivers, but it's going to be a lot of the language that's contained in the license, for whatever it is you signed up for with the cruise.
Does the waiver waive the owner of the business of everything? Like if you put everything on the waiver and someone sign it, I'm okay legally, or?
Well, it depends. If certain things are unwaivable under the law, there may be things that you can't waive, even if you put it in a. You see this a little bit, and I'll use car contracts as an example. You can sell something if you're a car dealer and you sell somebody a car, you sell it as is. You can waive warranties. However, there are certain warranties that are implied in the law. One of them is merchantability. Is this a piece of merchandise that should be sold at all? And the other is fitness for a particular purpose. I'm selling you a car. It has to operate like a car. Yeah. You can't really waive those. They're read into contracts if they're not written in the contract itself.
So this is important. So if you buy a car, what kind of warranty you have by the law?
Well, you're given the implied warranty of merchantability if you're buying it from a car dealer, a merchant, and that type of merchandise, and fitness for a particular purpose. Obviously, if you're buying a Volkswagen Beetle, it's going to operate on the roads. And, however, if you were to take it out off-road and something were to happen to it, the dealership's probably not going to be in trouble for that.
Makes sense.
So those are the two main ones. And they're, in the Uniform Commercial Code, which applies to a lot of this, has provisions and gap filling provisions for when contracts are silent. That boilerplate language on the back of contracts, sometimes it's missing some things, and the law can be read into them. I mean, commercial litigation is not my thing, but you learn a little bit as an attorney just when you're.
That's good to know.
Practice. Sure.
Yeah. As is.
So, would you be able to help somebody, or would you take the case if somebody went on using again the Royal Caribbean and they went on an excursion and something happened? Would that be something you could actually deal with, or no?
Well, I've had cases that deal with cruise ships before, and injuries that happen on cruise ships. Not too long ago, I had a lady that took a header over a platform that was more or less disguised with the flat part of the floor. There was no way to tell when you were standing at a certain angle. I've taken cases like that before. the trouble you have with some of those cases is liability can be limited. There is what is called one of our favorite things we learn in school is death on the high seas. So if you're on a cruise ship or even flying in an airplane and something ridiculous happens to you, if you're in international waters, it's like $100,000 is the cap. On any death on the high seas. And like I said, it includes not just boats, but the federal law just preempts and limits your recovery to that amount.
So that's if. Go ahead.
For situations like that, the lady slipped, it wasn't clear that there was a step there or whatever. It's very important, I assume, for clients to get photos and videos right away of how it is, how it looks from different angles, so you can tell.
Always.
And show in court, I guess.
Yeah, and think about it, too. If you're going to accuse a landowner of not properly maintaining their land, and like, for instance, in Florida, the landowner has a twofold duty that it owes to the people that are on the land. And that spectrum of visitor goes from the business invitee, that's the person you invite on your property to do business with you, all the way to the trespasser. So the business invitee is given the most consideration. Then you have your licensees, people that come to a ball game, and then you have your people that trespass. You even owe a duty to trespassers. And basically that duty is summed up by you're not allowed to set traps for them. But the person that's a business invitee, you have to make the premises safe. You have to remove dangers. You have to warn of anything that they would not detect from, just from their senses. You have to give a warning. And you have to remove any dangers you're aware of. And it's not even so much a question of, suppose you were to walk into Home Depot. It's not just a question of a rainy day. I walk in Home Depot, you slipped and fell. Of course you did. It's rainy out. Well, not only do they need to warn you with signs that the floor can be wet, because you can come out of the rain and you can walk in the front of Home Depot where it's soaking wet, and you can walk all the way to the back of Home Depot where it's dry, and then you walk back again on dry floor to wet floor. So they have to warn you, but they also have to attenuate you. So it's not enough that you warn somebody. You also have to separate people from the danger. When the poor little boy died in Disney with the alligator that got him, I guess they were at the Grand Floridian beach area, which, if you're in the Caribbean, it's great to have that, open to the water type of thing. But in Florida, we have large, carnivorous reptiles. So it's not enough now that they put up a warning sign, but notice now they have to rope it off. They have to keep you away from it.
Like a net, Yeah, I was thinking on that. I'm about to go in November to a cruise, the Disney cruise, and I was afraid about that because there's a lot of kids. I think they should put a net. So is by the law, is this required or not?
Well, and like I said, if you're going to try to show that a landowner is not using reasonable care to protect its people on the land, then like Greg had asked, he asked a great question, preservation of the evidence, because you can't count on the landowner to do the right thing. The manager at the supermarket is not going to want to gather all the evidence that may show that his employees might have been careless. What's interesting about that, and you see this in a lot of premises liability cases, very strange, but when people get hurt at a supermarket, I've had more clients want to pursue business owners because of the way they treat them afterwards. They didn't call me. They didn't ask how I'm doing. They didn't care. What was the manager like at the store? He was okay. He helped me up, but I didn't hear a thing from them later on. And people fail to realize that the businesses will basically instruct them not to communicate with you. And the funny part about that is it just rubs people way the wrong way. But anyway, back to preserve evidence. You have to preserve evidence. It's not easy to do it either. If you fall on your backside and you're stunned or you hurt yourself, the last thing in the world you want to be doing is, first of all, it feels humiliating and embarrassing.
This video.
And so you're not exactly making eye contact with people. You're kind of head down. What you really need to be doing is taking pictures of whatever it is that caused you to fall and getting the names of anybody that might have seen it and asking the supermarket to preserve any potential video they have of it, because they have a duty, once they're put on notice, not to let evidence spoliate. But collecting evidence, there is nothing more important in a premises liability type of case, or and even on like a cruise ship.
But they can use against themselves the video, or?
Well, if the video exists, and you indicate within a reasonable amount of time, suppose that it's their policy to record over video in like 21 days. If you make the request to the business in writing and you want to send it certified, just so you know they got it within that period of time, and all of a sudden that video, it disappeared. I had it happen recently on a case with documents. Then there's a potential case. So not only would they potentially be facing a case for premises liability, but then there's also a case for spoliation of evidence, which can be pretty serious.
Yeah, this is important. Like, for example, here I had multiple times customer asking me the video, even the police, when something happened, like it's normal, but the police come right here and let me see the video. If I don't have it, is it a problem or no?
Well, I mean, if the purpose of the cameras, I mean, you see this sometimes. Sometimes cameras are strictly for surveillance, and they don't record.
Yeah.
If there's no legal,
this is my case.
If there's no legal requirement that something's recorded, it may not be recorded.
Okay.
Even traffic cameras, some of them are made for just observing traffic. Some of them are made for recording events.
Okay.
So, you may deal with the DOT or the county. If you had an accident at an intersection, you want to order that ahead of time. But they don't have a duty to preserve anything unless you ask for it. And even a business owner too. If you don't make a request,
with the certified mail.
Certified. Well, a paper trail that you can prove is always the best thing, for sure.
I do have a question because you mentioned you had clients that continued legal action because they didn't get calls or whatever, and you said that most of the time they don't do it and they shouldn't do it, right? And is there a reason why that a business shouldn't call a client, or not a client, but a
Well, put it this way, I do plaintiff's work, but if I were to advise a business manager, after an event occurred, risk management is going to get a hold of these people and is basically going to tell them, you don't need to have any communication. I mean, if my client were hurt at Publix, I sure as heck would not want her talking to the manager. Once the event occurs, you kind of got to attenuate. You got to separate. And people, and there's my older brother Tom, he's a full-time mediator, but he's a PI attorney for like 25 years. He has an expression that I like to sometimes whip out, and that is, never proceed into litigation for emotional, religious, or philosophical reasons.
That's good.
That's
really
what that's
good.
for.
This is for
and that's another way of saying, unless the case is worthwhile from a damages standpoint, and unless you have the evidence to prove that the landowner or the whoever it is who caused your injuries is negligent, then don't just go in there because you think God is going to sit on the jury. Yeah. I mean, I'm not to get all religious, but I've never ever seen God or Jesus on a jury before. I get the feeling that he doesn't take sides in things that go on between human beings.
You can put all together.
You may need to edit that out, actually. No, but the point is, letting your emotions get the better of you and not relying upon the evidence, the proof, and logic. That's the recipe for disaster.
Makes sense. Greg, let me ask you something. So let's say we have a good case and we want to put in the news. What is the steps? How can I call? I don't know. Call Channel 6 or how can I do?
If you have somebody with an inside connection, that's usually the best. It's all about connections.
Let's pretend that we don't have you.
Right. So if
for normal people.
If you don't, then you would go to the news agency's website, and you'll look for contact information, and they'll normally have email addresses and phone numbers, so you would call, I guess, if there's a reporter you like, you can call that reporter.
Okay.
But most of the time, you want to reach out to the desk, the news desk. So that's the assignment desk, and they're the ones who get all the stories and dish them out to everyone. So I don't remember any of the email addresses offhand, but I think like WKMG, it might be newsdesk@WKMG.com. Don't quote me on that; may not be correct, but
we can check that.
Yeah, that's it. You want to get in touch with the news desk, but feel free to use any of those contacts because they can get you to the right place.
Yeah. The other question is how, let's say we have a media company, we have a Meta Media that take care of a lot of things for us here. How can we get credentials for big events?
Credentials?
Yeah, as a media.
Okay, for your media people to get into the event. So normally when the event is organized, you'll want to reach out to the event organizers and say, hey, we're media, we need to get credentialed through you. They'll issue you your credential.
Yeah, I have seen
to attend the event.
Yeah, I have some friends that, they just opened their business probably a month, and they got important credentials like for important events. So do they have a limit, or they allow everybody to go as a media, or how does it work?
I mean, not just anybody can get in, but if you're a legitimate media representative, you can get in. Yeah, and that includes like not just people on television, but like bloggers or
nice.
you know.
How can we prove that we are legit?
Well, there's a few things like my friend who owns Valenti Vision Films, Joe Valenti, he creates his own media credentials. So I have one with his company, name on it. Yeah. Greg Wilson, producer, works for Valenti Vision Films. So the media company can create their own credentials, which is helpful if you travel a lot. You go to the airport, your bags are overweight or you have a lot of bags. The media rate is like $50 a bag for anything up to 100 pounds. So you get a huge discount.
Yeah, really.
But you have to be legitimate media, and you have to show they know the difference. You can't just create anything. They'll look into it and make sure there is an actual business.
LLC or whatever.
What if you're a famous person?
They take private jets, maybe.
What if you can just sound like famous people?
There you go. Then
you can really sell it.
You get right in.
Maybe Snoop Dogg is coming.
No, I think we got Arnold today. We're going to go to the sporting event. We're going to watch. We want to get in. We want total access to all of the lounges and the cheerleaders.
That wasn't Chris. Arnold is actually here. Surprise.
Yeah, surprise. That was through the mic. So
Chris Debari is a great friend of mine, and the whole Debari family. I just want to say this, while we're here chatting, I've known the Debaris and Chris for over 30 years. You could not find a better family. Yeah. I love all the Debaris; they're amazing, and this guy is awesome. Good friend. Lots of fun.
That was good.
And funny.
Dude, I wasn't threatening you before. But thank you.
Can you do his voice as well? So you're good on that?
It's kind of tough when you're doing voices, and I'm not that good at it. There are some that I can just do. You need to have something about the voice that stands out. Greg, not so much. He sounds probably too much like I do. We got that whole.
I can do myself. Hey, I'm Greg, and this is how I talk. Does that sound about right?
Close.
Yeah.
What did you sound like before you moved down here?
I think the same.
He sounded like Susan.
Yeah, we were like all raised in New Jersey. We're down the Jersey Shore, but somehow we didn't sound like those kids.
Right. My dad was in the military, so I grew up all over. New Jersey was like college on, but yeah. So I didn't get that accent.
See, my mother was an English teacher, so she wouldn't let us sound like a. Yeah, 2 or 3 of your friends over there, tell them to get the frig out of here. It just was not permitted.
The Jersey Shore accent.
Yeah, Jersey Shore. Those are the kids from the city that used to come down. So when you're watching the show Jersey Shore, those are the kids we used to beat up.
Oh.
All the tough guys. We used to work on the boardwalk parking cars and things like that, where all these big jocks, these kids would come down and shoot their mouths off and cause trouble. But
that was another life.
40 years ago.
So, Chris, I do want to ask you, can you give us maybe, if you can, don't mind, give us a crazy story maybe that you have of a case, maybe it was a judge doing something or another attorney or something that you experienced maybe in court.
All right.
I'm curious if you got something funny.
This happened, this was 2002.
There was 20 years ago. Nice.
Yeah, I had just left the state attorney's office, and I started working in a private medical malpractice plaintiff's firm with a very, very talented attorney who was to run the show there. I won't mention any names, but it had come up that he had a case where a physician was actually injured because of the medical negligence of another physician, and this case was set for trial. And the defense attorney on the case, who I also won't name, was sort of notorious for his antics and kind of being maybe disingenuous, and so. He shows up for the review of the exhibits the Friday before the Monday trials start, and he's late. He's dressed kind of real casual, and he's not taking the whole thing very seriously. So Monday morning rolls around, and he moves for a continuance, claiming that his wife has thrown her back out really, really bad, and she's going to be on bed rest and needs him there. They even had a sworn affidavit from an ER physician who apparently was somehow related to one of his secretaries. So So my attorney just jumps up and down protesting this continuance because we've already invested tens of thousands of dollars in experts and flown them in and everything like that. And the judge very reluctantly grants the continuance because, the wife is his situation. They've got children. He's got to be there. And the judge has given the guy the benefit of the doubt. Well, here's what gets good. Like the next day, the attorney who my boss's wife had just come back from the tennis club. And she said, I think that attorney's wife was playing tennis. Oh. And my boss is like, and my boss he was an aggressive little guy, and he was like, no way, it's just not happening. It can't happen. And then after a little while, he thought about it. He goes, let's do this. Let's hire an investigator to just tail this woman. So they did. And so fast forward a couple weeks later, we're sitting in front of the judge, and my boss then makes the motion to the judge. He wants to have this attorney held in contempt, or wants him to be sanctioned, or he wants the judge to report him to the bar, which the judge is reluctant to do, because bar complaints are not something you want to get involved in. You can avoid it, even if you are a judge. But he plays the video that we had of this guy's. Now, this is a cattle call motion, so there are like 30 attorneys in the room in the judge's chambers watching this video of this guy's wife playing tennis.
And she's supposed to be hurt.
Yes, thank you. On bed rest with bathroom privileges only. She's playing tennis. She's jogging. And it's clear as day. This is her, and there's no denying it. And all the attorneys are sitting there like cringing because this is going on. And then when the judge turns to the attorney, he said, "Sir, did you know that your wife was playing tennis?" His response was, "Well, Judge, that's obviously not her best game." So the judge reaches into his desk and he takes the bar referral form out himself and starts filling it out. How's that for a fun story?
That's funny. That's not her best game. Jeez.
Hey, talking about court, I don't know if you can go around this question, but people that I know are afraid about court. So let's say that we are driving without a drive license, for example, and you receive a notice, at home, you got to go to the court, probably.
Sure.
So what is the process there? What they will do in the court? So,
well, here's the thing. When you've been given a notice to appear in court, or if you've been arrested, you're just going to be one or the other. Either an officer is going to stop you, and let's use a suspended license as an example. If you're driving with suspended license or revoked license privileges, then you can be charged first with a misdemeanor, and then 2 times with a misdemeanor, and a third can actually be a felony. So that's actually the quickest way to become a felon is to drive with a suspended license, and the quickest way to have your license suspended, typically, aside from points, is not to pay your automobile insurance. Because if you let your auto insurance lapse, then they will send you a notice, and you may not even know you got it. But if it's presumed that you received it, and you can see it in your driver's license record if it's sent by Tallahassee. So you can have a suspended license, not know it, and get a misdemeanor. Get another one, then it's a felony. Third, it's a felony. But as far as court is concerned, due process gives everybody notice and an opportunity to be heard. Okay, so notice is going to be your notice to appear. Notice is going to be the fact that you were arrested for a crime. You're on notice. And then you're given a notice of arraignment. And arraignment is going to be the first appearance before the court. It's not the advisory hearing, because if you spend the night in jail, you spend the night overnight in jail. But usually for traffic tickets, people bond out before the morning, even for DUIs. So they'll get the arraignment notice in the mail, and either they have to appear in court, or their attorney will file a notice of appearance and written plea of not guilty and waive their appearance at arraignment. So at that point, neither the attorney nor the client have to go to arraignment. So that's one thing. If you hire an attorney, you're not going to have to go to your arraignment more than likely. And then the process simply is then between the state attorney's office, which is the prosecuting authority, and the defense attorney and the defendant. The court is involved when we go to hearings. But most of what goes on, discovery is exchanged between the state. If you've hired an attorney, unless you've done something really, really horrible, you really don't have to be afraid of the court. If anything, a lot of, particularly with driving with license suspended, it's like, for instance, suppose you came from some other country and you don't have a driver's license, and you never had a driver's license, but the officer charged you with driving with suspended license. The crappy thing about what we call a DWLSR, which is that charge, is it's enhanceable. So every time you do it, it's going to be worse and worse for you, and potentially even a felony at a certain point in time. So one of the things we'll do is, if somebody can get a driver's license, we'll have them go get a license. And they can come to court, show the license, and often they'll reduce it to an infraction or they'll dismiss it altogether. Or we can ask the state, look, this person's never had a license to be suspended. Can you just charge them with no valid driver's license, which is less serious? So
less serious with the...
Yeah, it's less, because even though it's a misdemeanor, if you can get a withhold on it, then you avoid the conviction, but it's not as bad as driving with suspended license. It's like if you get a DUI and they were to knock it down to reckless driving. You can get 20 reckless drivings and they never have to put you in jail for any of them. Yeah. But, when you get DUIs and then second within 5 and then third within 10, it just incrementally gets worse and worse for you.
On a real life, I think here in Florida, we have over 19 million people like with no documents. Yeah. So what happened if the guy doesn't have papers, no green card, no permanent resident, get the notice to go to the court? Can this person be, I don't know how you call, by
you mean you taken
to their country or exported?
Well, deported. I mean, if it depends on how serious. At least in my experience, the thing you've been charged with. I've had ice holds.
Ice hold.
Okay, ice hold. I've had ice holds on clients that have been charged with felonies. Yeah. But to be honest, as far as the clients I've represented, I've never had anybody get sent back.
On the court.
Yeah. And ICE is not waiting at the courthouse.
Yeah.
That's not really the way
this is important. Guys, ICE is not waiting on the court.
No, not usually, not that I've seen. So
not that
if you're charged with a suspended license charge or DUI or something minor, relatively speaking, I don't think you're going to have to worry. I mean, there's no guarantee that ICE will say, they decide they're going to crack down 1 month.
Yeah.
But, I think just because of the sheer amount of resource, I think they're probably going to target their efforts at deporting people more toward the more serious stuff or more toward, like, suppose Governor DeSantis says, these are the people we want you to go after. I'm going to go after them. Then it's more targeted. But, for the most part, I don't think it's really a big deal. Do police sometimes like to, get on people that don't have credentials?
Of course.
Right. I'm not judging why they do it. Maybe they're just frustrated that they see a lot of it and it takes up a lot of their time. But, you're better off, obviously, getting credentials if you can. Yeah.
Get your papers. So I also want to highlight that we're going to have my immigration lawyer coming back to our show. Nice. So, Francis from Brink Immigration, thank you so much. I recently got my green card approved by National Interest as well with soccer. So, thank you so much. We're going to talk about my green card later on, but thank you so much, Francis, and all, like, everybody that make it happen. Yeah. And I always say to the people, like, come legal here. I don't know how people can drive illegal here. I know sometimes it's hard, your country, you take the big risk, but I'm very happy that now I'm a permanent resident, and thank you so much once again. Bring Francis.
All right, bro.
You've done it the right way. I mean, and then it's unimpeachable,
It's not easy.
It's sad. I mean, if you grew up like we did on the Jersey Shore, I mean, what restaurant did you ever go to that just was not mostly employed by people who were immigrants? Yeah. That's just how it was. And kind of one thing that's a little disturbing about it is because on the one hand, we want firm border policy, which I think you should have. But it's like, but for decades, you've been letting people filter over, and now they're so ingrained in the culture and in the economics of it. How do you fix it the way you want to fix it without screwing everybody up? And that's what's really peculiar.
Probably can't.
Yeah, I don't think you can. Yeah. It would take a tremendous amount of time. I mean, in years to sort that out. But when you come here legally, you don't have to worry about that. Well, it's not easy to do.
It's because it's harder. Sure. It's way harder. People. Yeah. I mean, this happened with me. You come with no money, no English, The easier way is to become
illegal. Look at you now.
Oh, no money, no English. I couldn't see it.
What's different?
Nothing. We have just a podcast here. That's it. I'm very proud. I'm very proud of everything. Like we are doing the right thing. I believe
you've accomplished a lot.
We hope. But Chris, I do want to ask you, because I was asking you off air, how should somebody act if they've been pulled over? So if you get pulled over by a cop for...
Depends on what they've been pulled over for.
Yeah.
If you're pulled over for speeding, be really nice. Sorry, officer. I didn't realize. I find that I've gotten a lot further with apologies than I've ever gotten. You know, the old... you attract more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, right? You know.
So when let's say you get pulled over for speeding, should you openly admit, hey, my bad, I was, before they even like come up and say, let me license and registration?
Well, it depends because you know a traffic stop. My mother calling. Everyone.
Nice.
A traffic stop can be initiated for a lot of reasons. If somebody sees an unsteady pattern of driving at nighttime, an officer may have a suspicion, and the way it works is this. You talked about this before about like a police officer encountering you in a high drug area or a nasty area, and all of a sudden, crime area. And as far as the constitutional aspects of the law, the constitutional law is concerned, there are certain levels of encounter. A police officer can walk up to anybody at any time and ask, "How you doing? How you doing? What are you doing? What are you up to?" Nothing. Really? Nothing bad so far. This is all just this meet and greet, they call it, or sometimes not
meet and greet.
Meet and greet. Hey, you wouldn't happen to have marijuana in your pocket, would you? No. Can I look in there? Yeah. And he reaches in and looks, and there's marijuana. Well, he asked your permission. You gave him permission.
If they say no.
If they say no, well, then at that point in time, if the officer wants to detain you, so he goes from being a friendly encounter, the meet and greet with the officer. If he has reasonable suspicion, this is level number 2, reasonable suspicion based upon articulable facts. So if there are facts that lead the officer to think that maybe you're engaged in some wrongdoing and they're legitimate objective facts, then he may be able to detain you long enough to confirm or allay his suspicion. And if in the process of doing that, so take a DUI, perfect example. You get pulled over, you were only speeding. So you're not too worried about it. You roll the window down, you kind of keep quiet because you've had stuff to drink and you don't want the odor of alcohol. That very distinct odor of alcohol that we first started experiencing when we were making out at keg parties when we were in high school.
Sure.
And it smells different than it smells on a shirt or in a can or whatever. They smell that, and then all of a sudden the officer's like, all right, this person's been operating a motor vehicle. This person's obviously been drinking alcohol because I can tell the very distinct odor of breath alcohol. They're starting to slur the words a little bit. All right, the eyes are kind of bloodshot and a little bit glassy. It's late. They may be tired, but who knows? Can you give me your driver's license, please? And all of a sudden they're fumbling with their hands. And the officer is taking each of these little things incrementally and establishing probable cause, which, you have your initial encounter for the stop. Then you have reasonable suspicion because of all these things you're observing. So then you take out the pen, you do the horizontal gaze test, and and their eyes twitch, and then they have you walk the line, and you can't do the line. You can't stand up on one leg. You can't touch your nose with the tip of your pad of your finger. Then the officer at that point in time is gone beyond reasonable suspicion, and he has now established his probable cause to arrest you, after which time he can take you down to the tank and ask you to blow. But they got to wait 20 minutes. They have to make sure you don't burp or put anything in your mouth. They have to observe you 20 minutes. And then they offer you the chance to blow. And you can blow or not blow. That's like to be or not to be. That's a philosophical question, to blow or not to blow. But you see how it rises incrementally. Yeah. So how do you behave when an officer stops you? It depends on what they stop you for. If you've been drinking alcohol, because it's not a crime to drink alcohol, and it's not a crime to drive a car, and it's not a crime to do them both. This
is what I'm going to ask. What is the maximum limit that we can drink and drive?
Well, let's put it this way. The 3 elements of a DUI, the state that would have to prove to the satisfaction of a jury, would be 1, that you're driving or in actual physical control of a vehicle. And actual physical control is sometimes you're just sitting behind the wheel of your car and you got the keys in the car and the officer approaches you, detects the odor of alcohol, and all of a sudden element number 1 can be proven even though you're not driving. So it's driving or actual physical control. Actual physical control has been fleshed out in a lot of case law that we don't have the time to talk about. So element number 1, driving or APC, actual physical control. Element number 2, were you under the influence of alcohol or a controlled substance? The fact that you've consumed alcohol, the fact that you have it on your breath suggests you're under its influence to some extent. The fact that you may admit to taking hydrocodone, you're under its influence because you've ingested it. So element number 3, the final element to prove is to the extent your normal faculties are impaired. So you may not actually be drunk, but you may seem like it. You may not be drunk. You've just taken hydrocodone because you were in a car accident the week before, and you can still get arrested for DUI. The blow, the 0.08 breath alcohol, that's not an element. That's just simply, if you were to blow a 0.08 or higher, then a jury is allowed to presume, if it wants to, if it's not convinced otherwise by other evidence, a jury may presume with a 0.08 or higher blow that the person's normal faculties are impaired if they want to. So that's how the elements are met. Normal faculties, your ability to walk and talk and react in emergency, and go about the activities of your daily life.
What is 0.08? Like, is probably
milligrams
one beer?
per deciliter? No. I can't give you advice on how much you can drink before.
Because I want to do the measurement.
I honestly had a client recently who, when I talked to him, he called me actually from the scene, and he's like, well, I had 2 beers. It depends on how many ounces of beers. I mean, if you had a couple of 12-ounce bottles, I'm probably not going to be too worried about it. As you get over 3 or 4 of those, if you throw a shot in there, then probably.
Whiskey, no.
No, but he had three like 20-ounce stadium beers and a shot. So, those blows are going to be
higher.
And that's just sort of how it goes.
But again, can be over 0.8, but if you control, like, it depends on the officer.
It depends. And, and the closer you are to 0.08, and the fewer aggravators exist, like you don't have any priors, nobody was hurt, there was no accident where somebody was injured, you weren't injured, you didn't hurt anybody. The fewer the aggravators are, the more the state is probably going to be willing to let you enter into a diversionary program. And the good thing about the diversionary programs now is you may have a DUI, but they'll knock it down to reckless driving, maybe not even convict you of it. And all you have to do is complete a probationary-like sentence, or probation itself if the diversion system works that way in that county. So the closer you are to the legal limit, but technically speaking, you could blow like you may not have anything in your system. I had a gentleman who just simply was mad at his mom, had an argument, he drove his minivan out of his driveway and went to the next development that was being built. He parked his car and he went to sleep. He smoked weed earlier that day. Didn't drink any alcohol. His blows were 0. He took a urine test. They never provided the urine result. But they still charged him with DUI because he admitted to drinking marijuana. They found him sleeping.
Yeah.
So, they can charge you with it. Whether ultimately you're going to be responsible for the DUI charge staying the way it is a different story. And part of my job is to convince the state not to do that.
Greg, any DUI in your life?
Thankfully, no. But I have one question, Chris. Like, can you at any point, the cop's there, he's asking you questions, can you plead the fifth, say, I'm not answering any questions at this time?
Well, let me explain something to you. That's a very, very good question, because the Fifth Amendment, your Fifth Amendment privilege applies to your protection from incriminating yourself by making statements. So now, what that requires are 2 things for your Miranda rights to be read or Fifth Amendment to apply. You have to be in custody and you have to be interrogated. The case law the case law that's come out on the subject as interpreted has suggested that the roadside questioning of a DUI defendant does not rise to the level of custodial interrogation where Miranda would be required. Once you're placed under arrest for DUI, they'll read you your rights.
And at that point.
And that's what I tell people. If you have the right to remain silent, exercise it.
Don't speak. But so I think to Greg's question, what if before that you just choose not to answer?
Well, what they'll do is they'll just treat that as a refusal. And that sort of has a legal, criminal implication, also has an administrative implication. If somebody refuses to take field sobriety, refuses to take a breath test, they will automatically, on a first time, they'll suspend your license administratively for a whole year from the date of the incident. So even if your DUI gets reduced to reckless driving, and you have no criminal suspension that's going to pend, you still have to serve that administrative suspension. Now, there is a hardship available for the first-time DUI offender. So, you get the DUI, then they give you your traffic citation. So for 10 days, you drive on that citation. It's your business purpose only limited license. But before that's up, you go to the Bureau of Administrative Reviews at the DMV, and you say, I want to waive my administrative hearing rights, and I want to get my hardship license. So then they'll set an appointment for you to have an interview for a hardship license. and they will extend the temporary until that occurs, and they'll usually give it to you.
So it's a long process. So show your purse, do the blow is way easier.
Well, or just
depends.
say, I'm sorry, officer, I'm way too drunk to answer your question.
Or you do the South Park when Randy got pulled over and he's like,
That is easier. My goodness.
he says, "What seems to be the officer problem?" Just pull that one out
Don't
of the
drink and drive. Get an Uber, guys. Or
Yeah.
call
So easy
Chris
now.
Debari.
bag. Be ready to rock.
Because Chris Debari has integrity.
So, but I do have a follow-up question because I was talking to a friend of mine, and he, I don't want to bring, racism in this, but he was talking about it. So he's black, and he lives in a white neighborhood. And this is what he told me. I don't know if it's true or not. But this is a story that he gave me, and he said that he was walking one day in the middle of the night, 2 a.m., and somebody called the cops on him because he's outside doing whatever. Now, he could have been doing something else. I don't know. He just told me his side of the story. There's probably more to this. But anyways, he calls, the cops come, and they start asking him. He said, 3 houses down from his house. He's walking back to his house. And then the cops wouldn't, he was like, dude, I live right here. And they, wouldn't let him go. And they had to bring in, the head sheriff. I don't know what the word is, but the main person to come. And they had to bring the parents out and all this stuff. And I'm like, just based on what he told me, I was like, dude, they went through a lot for a kid 17 years old to just go back to his house. I was like, there must be something more here because you're not telling me everything. But I'm like, okay, let's assume that you're telling me what's true. It's like that seems to be a lot more than what's necessary to let a kid walk back to his house. And I don't know if it's because somebody called the cops or what's the circumstances on why that would happen.
Well, it certainly is true that you never hear the whole story until you hear what the defendant says, and then you read the police reports. Sure. And then you get both sides of the story. And that may just simply be because the defendant may not be fully aware of everything that's going on from the standpoint of the police. The police may be staking out the neighborhood in a van because of drug activity, and then they see somebody. Is there profiling on an ethnic basis that goes on? Of course. Sure. I mean, it's horrible, but it is what it is. And I think that we're seeing that more and more now. I don't like to get too political into that, but we see that maybe in certain situations that race is something that is causing certain police to maybe act differently than they might otherwise. Just put it that way. But in the old, the classic cases that you learn about, people present in a high drug community and things like that. So if you're dealing with people who are of a lower socioeconomic status, they're going to be more likely to be in those neighborhoods on a more regular basis. Police may already be familiar with them for who they are. What I think it's, if somebody's walking through their neighborhood, no matter what color they are, and they're 3 things away from their house, once the police ask you, who are you? What are you doing? Because the cops can do that. They can come up to you and ask how you're doing. They can't detain you. So it's BS if they're detaining you. If they're just gonna come up, even if the cop's intentions aren't good, God forbid, he can come up and still say, hey, how you doing? What are you doing? You live around here? You got anything going on? You can do that, but you cannot detain somebody unless you have that reasonable suspicion that some sort of criminal activity is afoot. And oftentimes a mere presence of a person in a bad neighborhood is not enough. It has to be more.
This happened to me in a good neighborhood in the 80s. I was walking around with some buddies. We were kids up to no good. Somebody called the cops, but I didn't
admit you were up to no good.
Of course. But the cop, we saw the cop coming, and we just took off. So there was no interaction there.
You answer like I'm too drunk to answer or not?
Not at that time.
It's so funny when you consider, when we were younger, our idea of up to no good was a lot different than maybe some other kids.
Right.
There was there's a story of somebody that I knew that actually once snuck an entire pizza into a movie theater. He was up to no good.
Uh-oh.
Do you know who that person was, Greg?
That was me.
How'd you pull an entire pizza
I
off?
don't know how you did that. I even forget the movie we were watching, but
It was winter, and I had a full coat on, and we wanted to eat. And at that time, they didn't allow you to bring in food, but we wanted pizza. So.
but he was not buying that.
Oh,
Because my younger brother and I were sitting in seats, and he was sitting directly in front of us. And all of a sudden, at one point in time, you just get up, and he reaches under his jacket and he pulls a full box of pizza.
It was a large.
And we all had
large.
pizza in the movie theater.
Oh man.
Now, because it was sitting like this, some of the cheese, down
Oh,
to the
my
bottom, but
goodness.
it was still
You
great.
notice how fussy we were.
Yeah,
I was worried that the cheese
was
was
all
going to,
gone.
I wasn't going to have the perfect slice of pizza. I wasn't expecting pizza at all.
Yeah. That's
My
funny.
goodness.
I'm sure Greg's got some other crazy stories he's never told anybody.
Crazy.
That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Because that is when you're that age, that's pretty ballsy.
Sure.
Even younger than that, high school. Yeah, it was around high school. The most fun we had was one buddy and I would, in one neighborhood, I guess all the homes were designed where the TV faced the main bay window. So from outside, you could see what people were watching. And all the cable switchers were the same. So I'd take our cable switcher, I'd go and change people's channel as they're watching. And nobody thought to look like out
What's
the
going on?
window.
Yeah.
They're all like banging on the cable box and the TV. What's wrong with this thing? In the middle of the night when everybody's sleeping, we'd turn it on MTV back when they played music. Turn the volume all the way up, and the dude comes down.
Late
He's
night.
"Oh, he
Did you
probably
leave,
thinks
did you
the house
leave
is haunted.
a calling card? Like
No.
Wilson was here?
No, didn't want to get caught, dude.
Is that a criminal offense? Doing something like that?
That's a good question.
Inside the property.
I think
I
it's,
was
it's,
under
pretty- it's,
18.
it's probably trespassing. You're not really stealing the service. I don't think that interfering with people enjoying television is really anything you could charge them for, but you could probably have them trespass by the
Trespass. But how, let's say this happened 40, 30 years ago?
I was under 18 in the 80s.
I don't know,
By the way,
like
the
how
music-
many
the music
years
was
you
very
can
good.
still call the charge?
The statute of limitations depends. Each charge has a separate statute.
Trespassing is
We
like,
better delete this from the
yeah. Let's see if his can.
Yeah, I'm a lot more up on the civil statutes of limitations
Okay.
than the criminal these days. But no, yeah, there is for certain crimes. I mean, there's certain things that murders and things like that the statutes are unending or just really long. But for something like trespass, I don't think they can charge you after just a few years of that.
Let's say 5 years. Oh, the guy trespassed 5 years ago, man. You're good.
As
Clear.
Greg said, you need evidence.
There you go.
Evidence. There's no evidence.
There was
Can't get
no
caught.
camera by the
Yeah.
time.
Did we videotape
camera.
us doing it? Maybe. I might have something on VHS tape.
I think it's brilliant, just going around changing people's.
That's pretty
channels.
funny.
It was so much fun. Yeah.
There was something that used to really aggravate me. In our neighborhood, somebody was going around. You remember when they sold you the Christmas lights with the little box on it that you could, they still do. I guess you twinkle them, or you can shimmer them, or chase them, or whatever. And somebody was just going around cutting those boxes off your lights, which destroys you can't have lights after that point in time. Like that would be criminal mischief. That's something you could actually be charged for.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Criminal mischief. But if you're not doing anything to deface any property, and then it's nothing.
Hopefully not even trespassing, because it was like these were townhomes, and like I think we mostly did it from the sidewalk.
You were in a common area,
so not even trespassing.
so you were just kind of like a funsy peeping Tom with the clicker.
Jeez, I didn't think of that. Probably could have done a lot of peeping, but no, we were too obsessed with freaking people out about their TVs, having minds of their own.
Watching MTV.
I never did that. I wish I would have thought of that. That's pretty-
Still can, just need a universal remote now.
Yeah.
So,
That'll be funny.
although I'll tell you the truth, I can't program my own universal remote to my own television. I don't know how I'm going to do it to somebody.
Me
else.
neither. I have 3, 4 remote control.
Fire Stick. I'm on my third Fire Stick, and
Crazy, isn't it? Technology's moving way too fast.
But I
Way too
did
fast.
get rid of cable though years ago. Best thing I ever did.
Same here, yeah.
The news,
Tesla is testing that as well.
news was getting very depressing.
Yeah.
Without a wire, it's going to be way better. Look at this. Vamos que vamos, Meta Media. What else, Kaito? Any other question?
No, I think we're
Let
good.
me ask you guys a
Yeah,
question.
that'd be good.
How do you guys feel? How do you accept the roles of being leaders in your community?
You want to start first?
You can start. Why I'm thinking.
Ask me the question again.
How do you approach the role of being a community leader?
Whew.
And I'm not asking that to be funny. That's a
No, it's a good
serious
question. It's, to really give you without putting too much thought into it, it's interesting because, we deal with hundreds of people and hundreds of kids and parents every single day. And even when you have a bad day, and there's times we have bad days, you still have to put on a good face. So it's kind of funny. Like, we see politicians, and I'm like, dude, I don't know how they do it, because I'm like, they got to deal with a load of crap all the time. And I'm sitting here, I got sometimes parents coming yelling at you, or a client, or people that rent fields, they come and yell at you, and you have to put on a good face and smile. And, you can't, what's the word I want to use? You can't act out, because then you're just going to end up losing business. Yeah. So you have to just always, I've learned you just got to always watch your mouth, or you're going to burn the bridge. So that's probably the best way I could explain it.
Do they call you guys coach?
They do. They call me coach. Yeah.
Yeah, he's the coach. I don't do this anymore. Like, I used to do it, but now I do the back end of the thing. But answer your question, like, is the same thing. Like, we have a lot of people that works for us, our team, and I need, as Kyle, like, we need to be the guys, the most motivated guy. I'm never sad here. I'm never mad. I'm always happy, because if I come with this mood, everybody's we're gonna contaminate the area,
That's a good one.
So I also always like to be the example. For example, simple things that nobody likes to do, such as clean the restroom. Who's gonna unclog the toilet? I will go there and do it. More than happy to do it.
Hands on.
Yeah, I like to be the example, and I like to talk about my story as well, like what I passed to like how I did the thing. Sure. Like, I came with no money, I pitched some investors, like I want to say that Greg helped me a lot on the past as well, and helped me until now. So I like to talk with them about what I did, sure. And what I'm doing to be where we are right now.
It's the American dream, literally.
Yeah, it is. And we always say, like, when people ask, this is I get from you, like, people say, hey, how is everything? We live in the dream. Because literally we are living the dream,
You're a good team, because Kyle has always been, I've always been like, I don't know where he gets it. He is so focused and ambitious and motivated, and has been since, obviously I've known you your whole life, but I think I first started seeing it like pretty much right after college. You just like hit the ground running. You knew what you wanted, you knew what you didn't want, and you go for it and you make it happen. I'm like super impressed. So, and you apparently have the same genes.
We're trying every day, 1% every day we're going to make a huge difference in the future. And I always tell the people, like, what is your target? What is your goal? And everybody answers, be rich. Everybody, I want to make $1 million. And that was my mentality 8 years ago. Not having something makes you desire more, And I was like, when I stopped thinking on money, probably 4 years ago, the money started coming. That was funny thing that I always tell the people, like, if you just chase the money, probably you're not going to have it.
No, that's a good point, because I think you get, your thinking is all wrong. You're not receptive to things. I mean, I think when you take on responsibility, that's really where you mature. You take something on your shoulders. You take other people, their well-being, their futures and things like that. Look what you do for the kids. I mean, these you may have like a Beckham in there. You just don't know. But think about it. But these kids get somewhere and they're in a good place emotionally in terms of their mental health, and they're developing and things like that, and they've got the kind of structure that young kids need. Mm-hmm. Much better the kids be in here doing this stuff than just doing nothing.
Agreed.
And you want to go for the money, but it's important to like do what you love and that you're passionate.
You got to do the right thing first. I think if you do the right thing first, I think to kind of Tiago's point, doing the right thing first should lead you to where you want to go.
Yeah,
and that's the hardest part.
And talking about this, the new backend, we want to highlight here as well. This weekend we can highlight for the reels that we are looking for supporters for our Euro trip.
Oh,
because what we're going to do in December right now, January, we're going to go to Europe and we're going to visit a few big clubs that Kyle, Mitchell, and myself, we're going to do some meetings on the clubs to try, to sell a potential player to Europe or, helping them on their pathway.
Yeah, you played in Europe, didn't you?
Mm-hmm.
What was that like?
Oh, dude, it's not even close to this. The U.S. is so far behind in terms of environment, level, That's why like all the better players, they leave here and they go to South America or they're going to Europe. So like all the young kids like Pulisic left and they're all leaving. There's only one guy I know that was developed through the system here, but that was through an MLS academy that they just recently started. But we're just so far behind in terms of the structure and how we want to. Honestly, I'll try and make this as quick as possible. I think the biggest problem, to be honest, and a lot of people won't like when I say this, so this might be a good clip, is parents. And I say that because, you know, here for 99% of them, they're paying to play. So, like, you know, for a kid to make it somewhere, they have to go through a lot of hardships and deal with problems. But anytime a kid has a problem here at a club, parent comes and complains immediately. You'll see maybe 1% of kids that have a problem and a parent's not complaining. So they always try and solve the problem for the kid versus having the player, whatever age it is, try and solve the problem themselves. So, like, you know, when I'm over there and even as an adult, you know, I got kicked hard once. I almost broke my leg. Guy broke my shin guard, everything. And first thing I did, call mom and dad, hey, you know, help me out. They're like, can't help you. Sorry, I'm in another country. And I'm like, okay. Well, you know, then you start realizing, oh, you know, this is real life. I can't just call my mom and dad for help. And so you have to deal with it. And kids have to learn how to deal with it now. But again, I was raised here through this thing, through the same system, and mom and dad always supported me through the whole thing, which is good. But, like, they also solve problems for me versus letting me solve my own problem. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So it's like if the kids don't learn to solve their own problems, they're going to always want to come back to mom and dad at the end of the day, and you got to learn how to deal with that. So.
That's like it never changes.
Clap
You're welcome. End it on that.
Vamos nessa.
That's it, man.
Yeah, and if you can give us like some final considerations about how can you get an Emmy Award, you know, or how can you start as a filmmaker for people that wants to do that?
How can you get started? Learn the trade. So you have to learn how to shoot, do your research, find out what kind of cameras, you know, you can afford to start with, and start, you know, shooting. Go to school maybe so you can learn composition, you know, photography or filmmaking. Either way, it's, you know, learning how to do everything. And then if you have a vision or a story you want to tell, learn how to write it, edit, same thing. Got to learn the programs, and you got to, you know, make it happen. Graphics, animations are a big part. So if you can afford, outsource, have somebody else do the graphics and animations, so you're just editing, not doing everything. You want to learn, start a company, get out there shooting something, probably a short first, you know.
And create your media credentials.
Media credentials. That's great. I think Wilbro Films should be going with you guys to Europe and documenting the whole thing. That can be the start of another series, an ongoing series of high soccer. Like,
that can be good.
Taking them to the next level.
That is a good thing.
Yeah.
Let's
Chris, you
make
want to
it
finish
happen.
with something? Word of advice, maybe if you have an accent, who to call? Chris Debari Law.
Jingle.
I think the best advice is, you know, when your rights are in doubt, consult with an attorney. You know, and there are plenty of us out there. You know, if you find yourself injured in an accident, you find yourself, you know, you've been charged with a crime, or, you know, I can be reached at 727-656-7852 any time of the day. Or on my website at CDB Injury Law. You can email me, Chris, at CDB Injury Law. But definitely have an attorney in there with you, because, you know, defending yourself in court or prosecuting a lawsuit is not something you want to do on your own. You want the expertise of somebody that's got, you know, decades of experience, and it's really, really one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life, and, you know, you want to make it wisely.
Literally life-changing, because when I had an accident, called Chris, and he helped me out.
Thank you very much.
Done.
Helped my mom out, too.
Yeah, Susan. Yeah.
Guy knows it. And personal service, like a lot of these big, you know, corporations with all the ads, you're just a number. And
very quick, can we call you if we don't have customer service for a service that we hire?
I don't know that I understand what you mean.
Like we hire a company that supposed to give us a service that they are not giving us this service, and they don't have customer service.
You can always call me.
Okay, done.
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. We're gonna change the game. Thank you, guys. Follow us. Power Play P2. Buy your glasses, our glasses, and thank you, High Soccer Academy Arena Prospects. And see you at the next show.